ones that, I can add you. I mean, it's not, yeah, I know, we can add you.
I thought it was just going to be,
Yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't have you on my list yet as a solid, so Martha, yes or no?
yes.
Sorry about that. I did not mean to do that, apologies. I have to add you to my printed, my one that I had, my printed out one. I apologize. That was not on purpose. Sorry. Okay, I'm going to wait for the invoices for when Melissa comes. I mean, even though we have, because she's vice chair of the school committee, and when we do the financial stuff, it's the school committee who's voting on it. So I'll wait till she comes for that, okay? So we'll skip the invoices for this moment.
Yep.
And then let's go to the budget update.
I suggest we just do those together.
Oh, never mind.
Yeah. Just
Okay.
go to public comment.
We'll
and
go to
then we
public
can-
comment. Anybody online, public comment? And there's nobody here. All right. So I guess you can start the update, and then, again, when Melissa comes and there's a good time to take a break, we'll just do the invoices at the end. So
Great.
feel free.
All right, so we're going to just dive right into some of the option work that's been going on and try to get those in your heads so you can start to understand all the stuff that's been going on. And so in order to do that, I wanted you all to focus on the space summary first. You should have that available in front of you or on the screen. If it's on the screen, it's probably a bit small, but the materials will be accessible after this meeting on the website. So a couple of key takeaways is if you just flip to the last page, page 4 at the bottom, there's a couple of key determiners there. One is the small yellow box that has 1,100 in it, so 1,100 students is the enrollment that this group said was the enrollment we should be designing to. So that's the number. And then in the same column at the bottom of that page is when you add up everything that's above that for all the other pages, that becomes your total gross square footage for the building as a target baseline for this project. So high school only. This is not including anything, what we have been calling non-ed, like BCAT or preschool functions or district admin or anything like that. This is just a high school building for 1,100 students. And that's what the space summary that we're sort of baseline off of. So target would be 233,000 square feet plus or minus, and then you'll see us walk you through a range of building options that are going to be up or down from that depending on what the option is. And so we'll try to help you understand that a little bit, but I wouldn't at this point you're sort of looking at the translation of spaces and organization on a diagram. There's a lot of work that has to go into these to make them real architecture, but this is where it all starts, is sort of bubble diagrams and spatial ideas around how projects can be organized and things like that. So is there any big questions on the space summary? I can give you a couple highlights. We met with Mark and Dr. Conti on a couple weeks ago, and settled on a number of classrooms, like core academic classrooms. Those are the main teaching rooms, 40 of them, 10 science rooms, and those become your main generating capacity classrooms in the space, in the building. And so that's how you arrive really at, that drives everything else. Then we also discussed a size of classroom, which if you are familiar with the MSBA's process, they give you a 825 square foot minimum to a 950 square foot maximum, and we kind of went middle of the road there on the 900 square foot classroom, and that seems to be appropriate, but as we get into design later, you might see some minor deviations from that, just depending on how things shape out. So
Quick question.
Yep.
So, I mean, again, this is just the students and classrooms and kind of what we need for 1,100 students. Is there a sheet that does add in BCAT and everyone else, or did I miss that?
Not to the high school only program. You can see on page 4 again, on the back side of page 4, we have an accounting for what is currently in the building.
Yes, I saw
as an
that.
existing condition.
Yeah.
And if this committee said an option has to be with those in it, which some of these you'll see are with these functions in them. Okay, so like you have these option sets in front of you right now, so just look at the top page. There's an R1, that's a renovation only scheme. You see all the stuff that's in sort of the brightest color yellow on that option that just says like central admin, BCAT lab, district maintenance, science center, preschool, early childhood. Those are things that are going to drive the square footage up above the 233,000 that we talked about for the high school. And they're in this because they're already in the building now. And so we were able to find a place for them. But some options, like when we get to the new options, those are proposing just building a new high school component, high school only, and leaving this building with some of those non-ed programs in it or something like that. So we're sort of trying to really get to the bottom line of what does the town of Burlington need for a high school? And then everything else can be added or subtracted from that. So. Any other questions on the space summary? There's a lot there, so I imagine you'll need to take a look at that and review it and chew on it. Okay, so options. So the first one is option R1, and that was a renovation only option. We took the building and started to dissect it and figure out what we could do to get towards the program that you need to be at. It looks a lot like the building does now. We did reorganize a couple of key components to the program. I wouldn't get too
Someone have a question?
fixated.
I'm sorry, someone has a question. Who is it?
Mimi.
Oh, it's me. I just wanted to ask, I have not visited the website recently, so it may be up there, but have you created a spreadsheet that shows all of these figures you were talking about, the target square footage of 233,000 with what currently exists, how many the core academic classrooms, science rooms, all of these numbers that you're figuring out right now. At some point, I know the public is going to want to be able to do a comparison, and I think having it visually laid out would be really helpful. Perhaps it's there, I don't know, so I just wanted to ask that.
Harry?
I can't answer that. Mimi, this is the first time this information is being presented to this committee, so effectively this presentation will be on the website beginning tomorrow, so that information will be readily available to the public, but like I said, this is the first time anybody on this committee is viewing this information. Apart from
Okay.
Dr. Conti and Mark when we went through the space summary.
Sure. So I'd just like to be on record making a recommendation that a side-by-side comparison visual, I think, would be very helpful.
Thank you, Mimi.
Down the road. Thank you.
Okay.
Not going to be possible.
So the renovation only option is essentially bringing this building, addressing all the code issues, addressing all the mechanical, electrical, plumbing, the systems in the building, finishes, and we did reorganize a couple of components in terms of program. I wouldn't get too fixated on where program elements are shown right now. This was just kind of a first pass at how we might do that, but technically you do have a little bit of extra space in the building, so it gives us some wiggle room to reorient things and maybe a better flow consideration for the high school. So the big the big problem, I guess, with a renovation-only scheme is you got to take people out of the building to do the work. And what that does is creates a very long process of moving students or occupants out to renovate and then move them back in and shuffle people around to different parts. And it's pretty costly for temporary facilities like the modulars or something like that that are going to go on site somewhere to house these students or people while the construction's going on. So you can see in this diagram, there's like a little, it's almost the size of your little keychains, but it's right here. And that diagram gives you a little bit of a phasing idea about how we might accomplish this. And we thought we would go after the classroom wings first, because that would give us the most flexibility in terms of how we then position the rest of the building. So 1A, 1B, and 1C were all sort of fragments of their own, kind of coming off of one of another, and then doing the other phases potentially over summers or in sequence. So.
Question, and I'll get to you, Martha. So I see that there'd be 20 modulars. That would be, where would you put them?
It's a good question. We're going to have to find a spot. So probably in some parking area, and then parking would have to be addressed in a different way.
Okay, and Martha?
So if we were to do this kind of a program, I want to see if I'm reading it correctly, but it looks like the center of the building where there aren't windows and there's no natural light will continue to be that way, but that it will be the cafeteria, the administration, the media center, the robotics, and the art department will have no windows, whereas all of the classroom spaces would have windows. Is that an accurate assumption or no?
We're trying to put classrooms where windows are, but you can see the green spots that are around, that's like by art or admin.
Yeah.
We're giving indication that we think we might want to like open up the building to put a couple courtyards in to give outside windows in those spots.
Okay.
But yeah, so that's the strategy on that.
And the science classrooms then would go into one of these other wings that are labeled classrooms right now, but not clear where?
Yep. Okay, option 2.
Through the chair. There is a question, if you want me to hold on it to later, or if you want
I'll
me to...
let them ask. I think it's probably about this here, so.
It was typed in, so Cheyenne B, if we were to do these in phases as shown, how long would it take per phase, and how would we continue student functions during construction?
Yeah, so the phases we're thinking would be, for the classroom wings at least, we would try to do those in like 8-month chunks, which allows us to move students in for 8 months, which is, approximately how long a year is for them. And so you're renovating something while that student group is in a modular, and then when they come back, that portion's open, but the new student group is in, and you renovate their part, and you just kind of cycle through that. So that's a 3-year process in and of itself when you're talking about cycles of students and years. And then in the summers, we would try to do, we call them like summer slammer scope or something like that. So you could tackle a big piece of scope like a gym or something that's really wide open and kind of easier to get at. And you can do those in chunks of scope that are about 60 days worth of time. And so we would layer those in that 3-year process, and then once you're done with those, you have to circle back and do some of the other components, like the non-ed spaces, like the phase 3 part, the 1-story this end of the building. So we're thinking each phase would be roughly a school year on the 1A, 1B, 1C. And then the others would sort of follow suit as we can piece them in. And so looking at a potential total duration of at least 36 months on this project, but that's best case scenario, so.
Okay, thank you.
Option AR1 is an addition renovation. So the first one was renovation only. This one is an addition renovation. And if you'll know, you'll kind of start to catch some common language between these options. The area that's bound within a sort of dark red heavy line, dashed line, is the existing to remain portion of the building, and then everything else would be addition that you see in the drawing. So in this scheme, it was following strategy 2. I don't know if you all remember the strategies we presented at the last meeting. This strategy was like, what if we just keep the gyms, that end of the building, and try to figure out an option outside of that? And so we are looking here at keeping the gyms and then building the new building as you can see it in this scheme. So where we would likely start is to take the auditorium and music on this scheme. We take the auditorium and music offline, build a new classroom wing completely. You could flip all the kids in there, and then you demolish this, everything else, and then you kind of go after the renovation scope. Those can juggle around a little bit, and so as you get more clarity on the option, if this was a desired way to go, then we'll start to iron those details out a little bit more. But the big thing is, again, you have a substantial number of modulars required on this project, and you have I'm sorry, this one doesn't require as much swing space because you're able to build the wing out. That's one of the advantages of this one. But and it's another 36+ month project on timeline. So big disruption. This one actually does not accommodate the non-ed programs at all. They're moving away and they never come back in this scheme. So that's one of the things to consider is where do those programs go if they don't live here?
Keep going, or?
Yeah, there was a question over here,
Oh, Martha,
If I may?
I'm sorry, I was making a note.
So I'm trying to visualize this, and what you're saying then is that everything that's in white here will be demolished, and there's no replacement in that space.
it would become like parking and
Okay.
roadways and stuff like that.
So and these tannish corridors, I see only 2 of them. Is that all the classrooms?
Yeah, 2 floors.
So there's 40 classrooms in those 2
Yeah.
tan sections? Okay.
And then again, you said that this would require modulars, so that's where the students would be while you're,
No, this one doesn't, because this is a build the classroom wing first, move the kids in. So that wing that goes off to the side, you build that first, and then the kids can move into that. So you don't have to have swing space for them. The building is the swing space.
so they'll be in the building while you're building.
Yep. An occupied phased renovation. It's the joy of it.
All of these addition renovations are going to be occupied renovations.
Yep.
The building will serve as a portion of the swing space. This option doesn't require modulars, but some of the other ones will.
Yeah, because the first one, it said it did.
Yeah, that's a full renovation, and yes.
Okay.
This is building something completely new, this piece on the right here,
Yes.
and the kids are in school in the existing building while this is being
So
built.
they're going to be here.
Yeah.
And just, Martha, if I could just have a clarification, that first floor, this bit here,
Yeah.
this is actually a first and third floor.
Okay.
So I just wanted to make sure. I was like,
I was going to ask a
trying to figure
follow-up.
out why you're.
Yes.
but, yeah.
But so is it first, second, and third floor all in that
There's
space?
no- Yeah, that's a shape that goes straight up. First and third are the same, the middle one is different, and that's shown off to the side, the second floor.
So, but that piece there is
3
3
stories,
stories tall, and the first floor would look like this, the third floor would look like that, and the second floor would be a little different configuration.
Yep.
So like maybe that might be the science classrooms or
Yep.
something.
Yep.
Okay, great, thank you. You anticipated my question.
So, oh, I'm sorry.
It's Doug.
So on this one and on many of them, we're looking, everything's fairly to scale. So you're looking at a smaller gym. That second gym's, first gym stays the same. Second one gets much smaller, so cafeteria can go there. And then is the auditorium significantly smaller? Like, are we losing significant auditorium size?
It's about the same program-wise. It's about the same. The current program, your current auditorium, 7,000 square feet, and we're showing 7,300.
Oh,
So it's just kind of different proportions and different layout. Yeah.
okay. But you do lose some gym space.
Correct, yep.
Okay.
Okay, AR2?
Anyone else have any questions, any online you see?
The auditorium square footage includes the stage?
The stage is separate from the 7,000, yeah, it's in addition.
Oh, I see.
Okay, AR2 is, so it keeps the same bit that we just talked about in AR1. It keeps that bit on the end, but it's also keeping the section on the north end, which is the highest end of the building. And that we're proposing might become
I didn't get an AR1.
some version of, is there one missing somewhere?
I'm missing AR1.
It's on the back.
This is AR3 and AR2.
Where was
Where was
the first page you had?
renovation page?
Oh, it's on the back of that one, all right. Never mind.
I tried to print them so you could just like flip it straight on the long edge. Yeah.
All right, got it.
Okay, AR2. So this one is proposing that you basically demolish the core center of the building where all the level changes are, and you're keeping the lowest, the end level down at the gym end, and then you're keeping the highest end, and they become basically two separate buildings. And then we add on to the middle, or to the front face of the gym area to create a new high school down there, and then keep this in. So it's sort of, you can see it as a variation to AR1, but we're keeping this end of the building as space for the town non-ed programs. So this is the solution if you wanted non-ed programs in the building. This is that solution that you would take instead of AR1. And the classroom wings are somewhat the same. We took another look at it and shuffled some things around differently. And so this one, to the comment about the gyms, would leave the gyms in full how they are now, and we do a different solution for the cafeteria instead of trying to put part of the cafeteria in the big gym downstairs. And so those are really the big differences here. And again, because we can build the classroom wing shooting off the side of the building first, it has limited swing space required, but the construction duration is still long because you got a lot of moving parts to do during that phasing. So we're projecting probably about a 36-month construction period to get through all of it, including the site work that might come on for a project like this. So really quite similar to the last one, just a few variation differences. So.
Questions, anyone?
And I think we're saying that this section up here, we probably wouldn't do a ton with. It would just sort of be severed and kept connected to the systems, and then you can choose to do that at another time if you feel like it. So.
If I could,
Yes, Ms. Simon?
so on the AR1 then, I was curious about taking up part of the second gym for the cafeteria, and I know that there's the rubber gym, and then there's the gymnastics section. So how big would this second small, would that still be a high school basketball-sized gym? Is that all of the rubber gym? I'm assuming it's not, but do you know what I'm asking?
In AR1?
In AR1, the second gym, the smaller gym, is that still?
Next to the cafeteria?
Yes.
Yeah, that would be more of like an alternative, like gymnastics or PE type space, not,
That space, but
Yeah.
not another full basketball court-sized gym.
So we're, I gotta,
Okay.
In its
So-
current, it's not a regulation size
It's
gym.
not-
In its current form, it's not a regulation gym.
work gym?
The rubber
The rubber
gym?
gym,
The rubber gym.
yeah,
All right, so we've got the
for basketball
JV and freshman games on it?
practice.
right, so,
We use the wooden gym because the mics, yeah.
right, because I know that right now, there's the regular gym that we play the basketball games in, and then I always called it the cork gym, which there was a lot of, that's where Pop Warner practiced, for example. And then behind that was where the gymnastics room was, and then next to that is the wrestling, right?
Yeah.
So are we accommodating all of that, or no?
yeah, so most of that stuff would stay, the non-gym spaces, the non-like two-story spaces, but the stuff that's more underneath, that we would keep.
Okay,
And then we're just taking over a part of the rubber gym to sort of try to make that a cafeteria area.
I guess for me, again, maybe other people too, because there are a lot of people who haven't been in and out of the building, some of the people online maybe, and, I know you have a lot of stuff kind of labeled here, but like with me, I'm like, okay, where is the wrestling gym going? Can we label, kind of mark that a little bit on this too? Just put some more detail so I can, vision better where things
Yeah.
are? Yeah?
And,
I would appreciate that as well.
Yeah.
yeah.
I have a question. So this non-high school program space, would we be required, and I'm hoping that we would be, to update it as far as accessibility standards?
Yeah, well, this is kind of one floor over here.
Okay, but I
So
mean,
that's why we sort of chose to say, before you start going down the ramps, there's minimal
Okay.
things you have to do for that.
in this area here, there are not as many accessibility issues
Correct.
as, okay. good.
So the same thing with the non-high school program is the kind of greenish, yellowish, right? You're saying we're leaving that and leaving everything intact as it is, and you can leave whoever you want in there?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, and let me just sort of rephrase, we'll definitely do the additional labeling, but these are like 30,000 foot view, cram stuff in, sort of see, these are like test fits almost, to see some of these, you can tell right off the bat when we start test fitting them, like this is probably not going to be a great outcome. And so I don't want to get too stuck on what's where at this exact moment. It's just really, those parts that you mentioned are, we do need to label those, but I just don't want to get too stuck on, I don't like that there, because as we develop these, if these get chosen, we're going to like really hammer into them hard. And
It's not about not liking it there, it's just envisioning
in
where
the
it
program,
is
yeah.
in comparison to today, so we can eliminate stuff,
Gotcha.
knowing that the right things are still included, right?
Yep, no, we're on the same page. I just want to make sure
Okay,
we're not
good. Martha.
too.
Another clarification to follow up on what Megan was saying. Are all of these options fully accessible for ADA accessible?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, you should assume any project we undertake as a group is going to be, at the end of it's going to be fully universally accessible.
Great.
Okay. Any other questions online or in the room? Okay.
We're on AR3. So AR3 is we're going to try to do modulars to move some students out, but the wing that we're proposing to take over on this portion instead of the auditorium, it's the wing that the current high school administration is in, and the second story above that. And so we're saying if we can have access to that, then we can build a new classroom wing extending out from that. Again, it would be 3 stories tall, And same kind of idea that AR1 and AR2 had, where we build the wing, move the students in, and then we can come back and renovate the other areas. This one is keeping essentially half the school and then demolishing this upper portion that can become a little bit more parking and things close to the front of the building, and creating a new front of the building that faces south, or southeast-ish there, page down on the page. So this is a look at how to do that and to get all the program in. And so the very end of the building where the gyms are would really kind of stay in this scheme we're thinking would be programmed very similar to how it is right now. And then as you come out of that, where there's no wings associated to it, the music and auditorium and things would just get renovated, remain largely the same. The core of the building where the science rooms are right now, we're proposing we might put another courtyard in there to create windows so you can put program into that, the non-ed programs, maybe BCAT or lab or something like that. And then move the cafeteria and kitchen to where the preschool is now on the first floor. Media center's kind of in a similar place to where it is now, and then admin on the front end. And so phasing wise, I think I talked about that. You build the classroom wing first, and then you follow on with the rest of it. This we do think would require some modulars, because we have to get rid of that wing with the admin and the second floor classroom space first to be able to build the classroom wing that's going to replace it. And so that's a number of classrooms that we need to replace. We need to host admin modulars and student modulars. And so you'll see that in this this option that we've identified, that about 15 modular unit, 15 space for 15 modulars that would hold those programs. So,
And we still have to figure out where the modulars are going.
yeah. Yeah. I mean, our assumption is it would go on parking, but we don't like it.
Right.
So,
Then we have to figure out where the parking goes.
correct.
Right.
So that's AR3. AR4 is based on strategy 5, where we were keeping the top part of the building, which is this end, and it's the one that has sort of a flat start to it. It's the highest part of the building currently. This section does have a 2-story component to it, and so that would be part of this as well. But from basically the end of this, the edge of this admin wing that we're in right now, from there down would all be gone. But when we were looking at this option, we discovered we could probably keep the music. This is 4A, by the way, AR4A. We discovered we could probably keep the music and auditorium and build a school that could sort of go around and meet towards that, because the auditorium and music are about 15 feet down from where this level is, and that just so happens to be about a good floor-to-floor height for new buildings. And so we can like build straight out and create a building that comes around, and then it just becomes the second floor around where the auditorium and music is. So it's a complicated concept to think about at this stage, but in our architect brains, we have some way to go here. But you can see that the big idea is keep this section, build the classroom wing straight, sort of straight west out of this, and then circle back around towards the the music and auditorium. And this one is a pretty complicated project to do. It's a very long project to do, so we're thinking it could be total duration of 48 months and require a big sort of temporary component to this project to make it work. So
You say temporary, what I see here is temporary site relocation.
Yep.
expound on that a little bit?
I think the only way to accomplish AR4A is you got to vacate the building, frankly, to achieve it. So that's, in a feasibility study, you want to turn over all the rocks, and one of them is, what if we can get everybody out of the building for 4 years and redo this building, what would we do? And so this is one look at that.
So so the only way to do this is to vacate. It's not like it would speed up the process if you vacate versus not vacating. It's a long project with everyone being vacated.
Yeah.
Okay.
We could probably do it, again, you might be able to push and pull on that duration a little bit once we get into it a little, but I don't think you can start this project without it being completely empty.
It's additional money to vacate.
Yep. Okay. AR4B is similar to AR4A. The only big difference here is that if you kind of can flip between the two, AR4A, we were demolishing all of the gym space and trying to recreate a new gym up close to the building that we're going to end with. And when we analyzed that as a team, we said it doesn't make a ton of sense to tear down these spaces that are already big and are prime for just doing a renovation to them, and to build back something smaller at a more expensive dollar cost. And so I said, well, what if we keep AR4B, which ends up keeping those gyms there and trying to create a link to them somehow during the design process. And so that's what AR4B is demonstrating, is that everything else the same, really, except for let's look at just keeping those gyms instead of creating new ones. So it's more renovated project.
It's a vacate too, right?
Yeah.
Clarification? And all of these green areas with the X through it are courtyard /
Yep.
open spaces, okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay. AR5, I'm going to be honest with you, it doesn't make a ton of sense, but I'm going to present it to you anyway, to say that this is like the strategies where we endeavored on strategies to sort of tell us what's feasible and what's not. And after we studied strategy 6 and addition renovation option 5, I think that for the disruption and cost of this project, there's a bunch of other better solutions. And so that's the purpose of doing so many options, is that you can scratch them off the list and say, we looked at it, it doesn't seem like it's going to end quite as well as the other ones. So, but this one is essentially the same idea. We would have to really get, this is like a big moving of students, using modulars, so you're moving students out and back in, and we would assume you would lose the use of the gym and auditorium for 12 to 18 months while you're trying to undergo some of these renovations. And so not super ideal, and part of that is that you can actually use some of the gym and auditorium, not the auditorium, but some gym spaces, you could actually do temporary work in there to make some classroom space that you don't have to displace as many students. So we're trying to use every inch of the building to create this, but it's quite a lot of disruption, quite a lot of headache for less benefit than some of the other options. So when you get to your discussion in a minute, if you had to take something off the table, I would start there. It's my professional opinion. So, so AR6 is looking at keeping the wing we're in right now and the adjacent wing. It's basically keeping everything that has a 2-story component to it. That was the strategy, is look at the part of the building that has 2 stories on it, figure out a way to connect those 2 stories, because none of them connect right now. So you'll see in the second floor diagram that we want to create some connectors that are actually sloped walkways. They're not ramps. They're low-pitch sloped walkways that get you from one wing to the next. And so that solves the accessibility issues between the three different second floors and creates a sort of more unified approach. And then work on the lower level to create, again, more classroom spaces, but then do a small addition out front that becomes sort of admin and main entry, and then on the very tip of that, sort of where the maintenance area is right now, it's just adjacent to this. We would then try to incorporate some of the bigger component items like cafeteria, auditorium, some of that stuff as a new build to the portion of the building that we saved, which is the two-story portion. And again, this would be looking at taking down the gyms that you already have and rebuilding something probably smaller up against this building portion here. So,
And Chris, you're saying swing space for everyone out of the building, 45 modular classrooms, and basically 3 years.
correct.
This is similar to AR5, in your opinion?
I think the outcome here is better than AR5, but in terms of disruption, it's the same.
Lot of disruption.
A lot of disruption. You're just, it's, you know,
Disruption and expense.
yeah.
Yes.
AR7 is similar to that, and it's currently the last addition renovation option we have, which was linked to strategy 8. And it's keeping the actual middle of the building, which is the auditorium section, and the wing that has the pre-K in it, and the associated second floor with that. And then building basically a 3-story classroom wing. This is kind of like option AR3 in terms of the classroom wing that comes off the side. So again, we could probably build a classroom wing first, but in order to do that, we got to take off a 2-story section that has students in it. So we still need that 5 admin and maybe 10 or 15 modulars to accommodate that as swing space. And then you could move the students into the new part and again, do that shuffle. And this one does end up with a little bit of non-ed program, but not enough to support all of the program that's in the building right now. And so, yeah, again, a lot of disruption, a lot of moving parts, about 36 months, and a bit of modular construction related. So
We have to pick and choose which non-ed program is leaving.
yeah.
Does it accommodate 1, 2?
It's probably most, honestly, but we'll have to just decide. I don't know. So
I'm just, like I said, you said it didn't support all the non-ed, so it's like, when I view it, they're half, right, so.
well, let me just say it this way, is that currently that's the same footprint as this and what's over there now. And what's over there now is pre-K, and what's here right now is district admin. And so if you have 2 available floor plates this size, and you've got those 2 programs at least, that's your non-ed program. And so other things may have to go, but there is, like, this has got an add component to it. So we could maybe change this one to say, let's add a little bit more to accommodate BCAT or lab or whatever you guys decide. So
Chris?
So is lab planning on coming back?
As far as we know.
The offices?
Yeah, because those have moved out.
This aren't, oh.
So do we need to continue to talk about lab as part of the plan? Okay. That's what I was kind of confused at with this.
Martha?
And in terms of thinking about swing space, like on this AR7 option, the part that's the section now, the non-educational space now, what if could that be reconfigured into temporary classrooms for swing space? And then after the new classroom wing was put together, then, could these spaces that we're sitting in be made into temporary classrooms instead of modulars? And would that be less expensive than modulars?
It's probably about the same amount of money. The difference is speed.
Okay.
You can get a modular farm set up far faster than you can do a renovation to this to make it ready for students.
So we could demolish this and put up modulars and then move them or something? I don't know. I'm just trying to envision.
It's that wing where the high school admin is right now, and the story above that. That's the section you want to get vacated so that you can tear that down.
Right.
And so it's the modular component required is really the second floor classrooms that are over there and the admin that's on the first floor.
So my question is, before you tear down that wing, could we vacate central office and
Yes.
put in temporary?
You could, but
It would cost more
Yeah.
and take longer than modulars.
that's my
Okay.
gut feeling.
That's my question,
Yeah.
good. And then, I don't know timing-wise, but if we demolish this, would that be a place, like some of the issue is where do you put modulars? So could this be a place where we put this part that's white on AR7? Could that be a place that we put modulars until the classroom is done?
You demolish first, yeah. And so then it's like kick people out, move them where they need to go. Demolish, put modulars down, that's totally feasible
I
too.
mean, there still would need to be a space for central office to go to or whatever, but,
Yep.
thank you.
Okay. New construction option, and again, on the new construction options, we are, these are only showing the high school program only, which is represented in here, and a couple of them I'll talk to have sort of a tangential relationship to this existing building, so I'll let you know when that happens. But the first one is NC1, and that's looking at putting a building on the existing student lot. And the big sort of challenge here is you can actually see in this image, so Plan North is kind of shooting off to the right, upper right-hand corner of this page. You can see the north arrow at the bottom of the page. So just up on the top edge of that parking lot, you can see a little wooded area. That's a wetland. And we're currently in the process of getting an ANRAD, which is ANRAD, abbreviated Notice of Resource Area. I forget what the D is. Yeah, thank you. And what it is, and I've had several conversations with Burlington's Conservation Commission, and we all agree that like there's so many wetlands on this site that it probably is a good idea to get all of the regulatory authorities involved, Mass DEP, Conservation, wetland scientists, and do this ANRAD study to everybody get on the same page where exactly the wetlands are, because this wetland right here between that practice field and this lot is creating, there's a 100-foot buffer on both sides of that. And so you really start to get constrained on where you can go. And this building literally on the other side of the entrance road is another wetland. And so there's these 100-foot buffer lines that come on both sides, and this building's trying to squeeze right into a buildable area that just doesn't disturb the resource areas. And the conversation so far with conservation is, we understand your constraints. We want to work with the school to get a project done, but they can't commit to anything until we get this ANRAD done, and we also present options that they can look at and study. And so we're trying to show ideas that are as compliant as possible up front, and then if the building committee said, we like NC1, but we want to see 3 variations on this lot, we like the idea of a building there, then we may start to take over the wetland and propose to conservation, well, we'll recreate the wetlands somewhere else. There's lots of things you can actually do for that, but right now we're starting out with the most restrictive response here so that you can see, if you had no relief, what this project would look like. But I think there's probably a path for having relief, so.
Dr. Conti.
Chris, I think, Bob, we had arson flag that area because I'm not sure it's a wetland. It might have evolved into one, but I think it was a runoff area that has been.
It is.
We were going to try to clear it out, and so I think they flagged. It's a pretty narrow area, so we have you seen that?
Yeah, so we had, when we did the survey, we had wetland scientists come out and do their own investigation on what was wetlands and what wasn't, and they did a flagging. But then the survey came back, and there's actually a daylit pipe that comes straight out there. I think it's fairly large, too. And that pipe is connected to the stormwater for this building.
Right.
And so I called conservation, and I said, that's just a drainage ditch, right? And she came out, your agent, Eileen, came out and took a walk around herself and said, I think it's a wetland. And so that's when we said, well, let's do an ANRAD and figure out what actually are the connected wetlands here, because to your point, it may be nothing if we do the study and says that's just a drainage ditch that we created, and it isn't a sensitive area as the rest of the site is sensitive. So so that's why we're doing that.
Megan?
When will we know the results of the ANRAD study?
So we have a proposal on hand right now, and we're gonna, I don't know, is that business? I don't know. We need to talk about how to do that, but we're currently trying to work on it right now, and it's not that long, but it'll be as soon as we can get it, because I think that's a key piece of information.
Months, like weeks?
I hope it's not months. I hope it's weeks. So.
Anyone else? Anyone online?
So this option includes gym, locker room, auditorium, and that's kind of the big difference maker between this and NC2. And the thought process here was that.
Am I supposed to move on? Sorry,
No, we're still on this one.
You're okay.
Yeah. So the thought process here is NC1 was a complete new high school build appropriate for this number of students, including the gym and locker rooms and all that stuff. And then when we were looking at it, we're like, well, we're actually pretty close to the existing building that has great auditorium, great gyms, stuff like that, that we can do minimal work to and save the town money. So what if we just built an academic-only building over there on the parking lot and get it where it kind of comes around close enough to the building? We can make like covered pathways. We can even do an internal connector if you wanted, but it then could connect back to this existing building to use this as a resource for this end of the building, almost effectively becoming like an ad reno of sorts, but I see it more of like a new building and utilize the existing, if that nuance makes sense. But that's the difference between NC1 and NC2, is that NC1 is a complete high school program. NC1 is a stripped back academic only building that gets all the students and academics into a nice new building and then utilizes the sports and performing arts section of this building.
And kind of back to Martha's question though, right? So we build all the classrooms and admin and the cafeteria, whatever you want to call it, cafe. This building, the current building stays as it is, right? So are you making the whole thing what we lead compliant? Or we're
Can you get
just
what compliant?
ADA compliant?
So what we would try to do is target the areas that we would want to use and like really work on that. So like if we say we're going to be sending students from the high school academic portion over to use music, auditorium, gyms, and stuff like that, we would really focus on that. And I think we could do that under the sort of threshold triggers that would mean we don't necessarily have to do the rest of the building. You all could say that that's a really bad idea, we should do the rest of the building, but that we're trying to, again, cost is important, so we're trying to see what we can do here.
I'm trying to envision that, because to me, it's like you're leaving a big section up here, and there's a big middle section we're just kind of leaving for the mice to eat and take over, or we knock it down, I don't know. And then there's the whole gym section down at the bottom. It's like, what are you leaving intact and not intact? And I guess, I just you're leaving it all intact, how do you keep people out of the part you don't want them in? I mean,
Yeah.
right.
I think this is why I sort of see it as a new construction that's adjacent to the existing building, is you might look at it and say, most of our dollars and money are going to be spent to build this new academic high school, and it just so happens that it's adjacent to an existing building that we aren't going to really do anything to. And the kids just go back and forth between them to use those components as resources when they need them. So.
Martha?
And so it sounds like we're sort of on NC2
Yeah.
now, and that doesn't delineate which parts of the old building might be demolished, or are you assuming none of this?
None of it.
None of it would be
Leave
demolished?
it alone. Like, it's really just,
So-
you build a new building, leave this alone.
And then the new wing would be, and so there'd be connectors to the parts of this building that we chose to use, like the gym and the auditorium, and this section could be continued to be used by non-academic programming or office space or something. And sometime in the future, we could choose to demolish the center, or we could choose to do something different with it. So how does that impact, though, because part of the impetus for this is the HVAC system? So how does that ensure that there's proper heating, cooling, and ventilation for the parts of this old building that we would be using for students?
This is, I think that's potentially one of the downsides. That's one of the cons, if you had to do pros and cons for this, is that we were trying to say what is the lowest first cost high school only solution, and that was this. And if you say, look, we know we have something we need to do to this building, but let's decouple that from an actual high school project and take them onesie-twosies. Let's get the high school project done first, and then we can refocus on what we need to do here when we have a clearer picture on what actually the town wants to put into this building.
So it'd be two construction projects in a sense.
I would see it more like that, yeah.
So again, essentially, NC2, what you're looking at, I'm sorry, through the chair, 150,000 square feet. That's as small as you can possibly
Yeah, yeah, for academic only.
for academic only.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, any other questions?
This has the same concerns or assumptions permitting-wise as well, with the resource areas on
Yep,
either side
yep.
of it?
Thank you.
Same assumptions, yeah. Okay. NC3 is effectively, let's move everybody off-site, demolish this entire building, and start over. That's kind of in a nutshell. So there's a bunch of different ways a building could emerge here. The one that we're showing is actually trying to more reasonably respond to the site, the slope of the site, and create a building that doesn't have a bunch of slopes and stuff like that. So that's what we're trying to do with this idea. And but the downside is you got to move everybody off site, demolish it, build new.
For 3 years.
3 years. We put in some of these, on the off-site options, we put modulars, which you might be able to find a way to do that on site, but in reality, it might be better to say, let's lease some office structure for 3 years if it's vacant, as opposed to buying modulars at such a cost. So that would be a conversation if you chose to go down one of these roads. You would want to really get to the bottom of your temporary facilities strategy. So NC4 and NC5. So these two, just as a point of reference, at the beer garden event, we had a bunch of great conversations. And we were there for the entire time. And one of the things that came up that from your neighbors was, well, why are we not looking at something on the stadium, on the football field? And initially, we were avoiding that because it's relatively new. I think it's only a couple years old. But the conversations at the beer garden, which is why we do these events, so that we can hear from people and respond, is they said, well, we replace these athletic fields at a clip of like every 8 to 10 years or something like that. And so by the time you actually finish a high school project, that field is going to be coming sort of end of life. And so we said, well, if you're going to be stuck having to do another field replacement or something like that, why not just give it a look? And so we did for NC4 and NC5. That really heavy kind of squiggly line are setbacks from wetlands, because there's wetlands all along that roadway and on the left side of the picture. But because it's already developed with fairly significant development for a turf stadium, we're operating under the assumption that we can probably have some better flexibility there than we could on the student lot, where we would have to like totally take out a wetland or something like that. But NC4 looks at an option that is a 3-story option, as you see it, and I think that this is a smaller alternative. It's a bit more compact. Likely when we actually scrub out all of the program into this, it'll get slightly bigger, just as we get through the net to gross factor of these. But in terms of a test fit, we're pretty satisfied and confident that this would fit here in some form or fashion the way you're seeing it. And just for sort of clarity reference, you can look at the next page, the NC5, and that's just another way to think about a school on this site. And really, this one, so just for 1 second, if you look at the north arrow on these pages, on every option, the ideal orientation for a school is...
They're like presenting their options for the first time.
The ideal orientation sustainably for a school, or for really any building, is long axis is perpendicular to the north-south axis, right? So you don't want the low sun that comes in the morning and in the afternoon to like really beat in your windows, because that's like when you get the most solar gain, and it really affects how building systems work. And so you want it rotated. I'll just point to it. So just so it's clear, you want your axis to be like, if there's a long dimension, you want it to be like that on a building. This one, what I was trying to play with here was, what if you do mimic the arc of the sun in the day, and you kind of lay something out that actually has a reason because it's missing the wetland setbacks, and you really try to push into the sustainability component of good orientation, because so many of these options are limited because of wetlands and all the other things, buildings, that we're not going to be able to achieve ideal orientation. So building on the stadium allows us to investigate other more sustainable orientations for the building, which is going to help you in the long run. And so that's really why we're showing this option, is that NC5 and NC4 are really two variations of a concept that would be on the stadium. And so you can kind of mesh those together and say we've already got two things to look at, but the idea is build on the stadium. And then, so stadium comes offline, you'd have to play football games somewhere else or any other sports that are on that field. And then we would need to find a place to recreate this home stadium, either on this site or in town somewhere. And that is a cost too. But the benefit is no swing space. You can build this thing completely in isolation from the rest of your operations currently. You can do it fast. This is a very typical construction sequence for most projects that are happening in the state. So we're thinking 2 to 2.5 years max on a building like this. And you're in, and then you can flip your program here, and then you decide what you do with this building. And so it's the cleanest solution for the site that you have, and I would be willing to bet, because of time and space that we can create just by doing this, and the logistics for doing it without modulars and phasing and all that stuff, that this option is going to become the fastest to a completed project and probably the most cost-effective when you weigh all of the different things around it, so.
Chris, the square footage of the NC 4 and 5, does that mean we still need aspects of this building?
No, these are fresh, and I think that these are like as of this week, and we're still pushing on these two. I think they're going to get larger as we sort of start to make sure all the program is there and we gross them up to the right size. It'll probably get closer to the 230 range.
So you're saying no connection to this building needed?
Nope.
Can you explain what this black box is?
Misspoke. That's so what we did do to get to a smaller square footage was to say, let's give you the gym. So this gym that's shown in NC4 and NC5 is actually a 3-court gym arrangement, meaning a main like full-size regulation court with 2 side courts. And the strategy we were saying is it is smaller than the current gyms, and you could do competitions there. But if you had big MIA tournaments or something like that, you still have these gyms here to do the big things. But it becomes more of like a gym for PE and sort of daily activities, and the big things can come here. Same idea for the auditorium component. Like the actual productions and stage productions that happen are less often than the need for a drama space to like actually practice and set up and prepare for performances. And so what we've done in several schools now is give them what's called the black box theater, and so that becomes both a performance place but also the place where all the student drama classes meet and do things during the day, and it's a smaller size. When you use it in a black box function, you can send out the seats and probably get about 100 people for a very different type of performance. But when you actually do the full-on stage productions, they just come over here to do them in the community theater that would be in this building. So, so that's the takeaway. I'm sorry about that.
So Martha, and then I'll ask mine.
So in order to do these NC 4 and 5, you still have to keep the old building?
I wouldn't say in order.
The gyms and the auditorium.
Well, we can, there's space. We can, if you said, put the full-size auditorium in here, not the black box, it's slightly bigger than the black box. We can make that work.
So that's
what we were trying to say again is, so at this juncture, the next time you see us, we're likely going to bring cost data associated with each of these options that you say keep on the table. At this stage, it's all about square footage. And so what we're trying to say is, well, maybe out of that 233,000 square feet that we talked about at the beginning of the meeting, maybe there's a way to build something just slightly smaller, because we don't have to take the full 7,000 for an auditorium. We can take 4,000 for a black box, because the big concerts and stuff can still happen here because this will still be here. But you still have all of the drama components. You still have all of the PE, all of the athletics that you want in the building down there on the field. But this is only for like the big events that happen that you would want that bigger space for.
Right. Is it kind of, yeah, go on, Martha.
I also had a question. So you referenced the sustainability, and you were talking about NC 4 and 5, but it looks to me like NC 1 and 2 are also set up along the north-south axis. Is there an advantage to one or the other, or not?
NC 1 and 2 are kind of, you can see one wing is actually the direct opposite of what you want, and then we're trying to bend it.
NC 1 and 2 are dictated by
the wetlands.
Wetlands, yeah.
The orientation is what the orientation is. And
yeah.
Okay, so maybe half and half, but on NC 5, it doesn't look like it's lined up at all.
NC5, I would say, is the best solar-oriented building.
I'll take your word for it because it's not lined up the way you said.
So my question, again, is our theater program is pretty well attended, so a small theater, I don't think, and I think most of us would be in agreement, wouldn't work. Plus town meetings there, it's just a lot. Can we see an option with, again, the larger theater and the non-high school programs built into the new construction so we can visualize it instead of just kind of maybe and if and whatever? I mean, I would like to see an option that includes that if it will fit in the space, where it would go.
On the field?
Yes,
Okay.
my opinion.
I
'cause-
agree.
Yes, okay. And
In terms of musical instruments if the musical instruments are being practiced on in NC4 and 5, and then for a concert or for a production, you have to move all the equipment over that you've been practicing on during the school day, it seems pretty difficult.
it's a lot, right, exactly. Doug? Yeah, I'll have him do it, and then you.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
And I hate to pile on, but it also would require, as far as I know, we don't have space elsewhere in town to put a football field and track and all of that. It would need to go on this site. So then we need to tear this facility down to put it. And replacing the turf every 10 years for $1 million is a lot less than replacing an entire stadium and track and starting from scratch as well. I mean,
It is, but if this could offset the cost of modulars or displacing staff, then you'd turn around and say potentially building a new stadium could be less expensive than.
well, it just needs to show on these plans. It can't be an afterthought. We need to figure out.
I agree. Because, I mean, maybe this
Cost of
dating, yeah.
things that we need, and like it or not, right now, the schools own those non-educational components. I mean, because we don't have any other.
Correct. And
It has to be in the budget. If it's not going to be here, it's got to be somewhere, and
Yep.
I don't know where it's going to be. but-
where it's going to go, right, on the parking lot, so it's close. Knock this down to make it parking.
Through the chair.
And you wanted to make a comment, Terry?
I did, yeah. So, and I'm just going to reiterate this, I've said this before in the past, but the way we are approaching this and have been is that there is a cost to provide a high school. And that all the non-educational programs in a new high school are in addition to that cost. And, you know, Chris references the space summary. Each of those programs has a space. And so we'll work with these guys to figure out how to put them in the options that we want to continue to look at. But they're really space numbers that square footage is just going to dictate a number, right? And so that's what's you're going to end up seeing that in the next month, because, you know, BCAT is this many thousand square feet. And so I just want to make sure that people understand that's how that will be presented.
Right, because, like I said, I think we want to make an educated decision where we're saying, okay, school only, school with, and we can say, okay, is it worth it to, add them in, or is
Right.
it not? And how important are they to the community to be here?
Yep.
And we're making an educated decision other than sort of a guessing game. I
Yep,
think
no,
we need to look at every option with the cost and then decide. Anyone else comment?
Yeah, I wanted to say that I think that there is an educational benefit to having BCAT here, to having the BECC here. I think, and even the administrative offices, having our superintendent close, our director of special education, and, director, our assistant superintendent of curriculum. I think it's really important that I think we've seen a benefit from them all being here together, and I'd like to keep it that way personally.
Like I said, the students are constantly in and out of all those programs, and they're learning from them, too. I mean, even though they're not, the kids are in BCAT all the time doing projects and working with the community at all the community events. They're kind of a part of everything, so it would kind of, and again, I'm not just saying BCAT, but I'm saying everything, because the students are in all the programs, and seeing it, I think it's a big thing. I'll go with Martha and then Bob.
Yeah, I mean, I think that we're used to this, number one. It is being used. There are really good uses of these non-educational programming with the schools and with the educational program. But I also think that it would be really helpful for the process if we could see what does it cost to include this, to include this, to include this, and because the town is going to be asking, well, if we don't include that, where is it going to go and how much will it cost us anyway? So that then we could say, well, BCAT would go somewhere else, but how much would it cost the town? And I actually don't personally know how much responsibility the town has to provide a space for them, but what would it cost? And so when we have this huge number that we're going to have at the end, whatever this project is, we can say, well, without BCAT, it would be this much less, but it would cost us this much more if we put BCAT somewhere else. And that's just using BCAT as an example. And I think it'd be really helpful if, I know these are much more, these are great compared to the strategies in terms of being able to visualize and think about it, but it's also helping us understand that these are the trade-offs that we're going to end up having to make in terms of space, but also in terms of cost, in terms of the town choosing which of these things are we going to include in this project that's for the high school, but if we don't do that part of the project, then it's still going to be a cost somewhere. And what is that trade-off? So I think that we're asking, this is only the first go-round on this version, but I think we're asking for that.
Bob.
I just wanted to ask, in regards to regulations, is it the same for wetlands if you wanted to build a parking lot as opposed to a structured building? Because I know this is 10,000 feet or 30,000 feet, but looking at this picture and C5, and I'm trying to figure out where parking would be. Would there be an option, let's say, on the practice field across the driveway to put parking there as opposed to a building? Like if it was permeable or so forth?
Yeah, I think those areas are really challenging, so I don't know the full answer to that, but generally, yes, you can put horizontal construction, like flat horizontal things, more into the setbacks than you can for vertical buildings, but it's still very, very regulated.
And then maybe a bridge over.
Put it on pylons.
Maybe a bridge too far.
Did anyone online, just before we, have any other questions or want to express any?
Melissa Massardo, hand up.
Discussion.
Melissa Massardo.
Can you hear me?
Yes, Melissa.
Okay, great. I just want to say I appreciate the creativity with trying to just show us a lot of these options with maybe keep this and not that, or keep this and the different permutations. So I think that's been really, really helpful. Are we looking to potentially eliminate another couple tonight? I think I heard at least 3 maybe that would require a serious swing space. So can we pick the one best option out of that? Because I think we all don't want 4 years of swing space at the expense of construction, but if we think it's important to flesh out, maybe we just pick one of those. That would be my only.
Melissa, yeah, I think that's a good idea. I think the 2 that I made X's on that I think we might want to try and eliminate tonight are AR5 and AR6 potentially. Was there a third one?
I think there was.
Yeah.
I mean, I will defer to Tepe if they think maybe we just flesh out one of those, if there's a reason for us to carry one of those options, you know what I mean? Combine 3 into choose the best one. I know I heard Chris say oh, this one gets you a better school or something along those lines. Or if we really think there's enough options on the table without needing to do 4 years of off-site space, which I don't think anyone really has the appetite for.
Anyone else have any comments? Like I said, I put on the table AR 5 and 6 to eliminate. Martha?
And I also looked at AR4A and AR4B as taking the longest time and having the most disruption off.
I agree. I had said AR4.
I see 4 that we might be able to eliminate, but would ask what you just said is if there's one of those that might take the best of these possibilities and keep that on the table if you thought that was a good idea.
Yeah, I mean, I personally, I think we should just run through these. I know that there's a lot of them, but, and if there's any consensus to remove it, I think that's a great thing. If there isn't, then they'll keep studying it. So I think, if we can do that, Chris, does that work for you?
I'm thinking if we're asking you to do a little extra work on the last two options with, putting things in, it might be nice to take a couple things off the table,
It's not
right?
extra work. This is all part of the feasibility study. Like, in fact, some projects, you take one out now and then you realize later it's like, yeah, maybe we should have not done that, and we bring it back, right?
Okay.
Resurrected in some way, but like,
Yeah.
I think it's,
Don't be so
backwards, but
flexible, in other
I
words, that's
just-
what you're saying.
Harry, seems like you're willing to move out on this.
I want to keep you guys moving forward and committed, but also know that this isn't an extra ask, and that's why we showed them, that's why we showed all of these. Sometimes there's actually some in our office that you haven't even seen yet because we do an editing process of our own, and it's like, let's just keep moving, right? And so to the degree that you are able to strike a number of these off and keep the focus on the things that you actually want, that you think are good outcomes. And I'm happy to opine on that if you ask me directly, but I want it to be your discussion and your Xing. But I do think that's a valuable process for this committee to say, we're interested in this subset, can you study those and then add these things to the things, and like that gives us very clear direction, so.
Okay, so we can so we can see people's names again. I'm going to just put it out there to have some discussion to potentially remove AR 4A and 4B, as Martha suggested, excuse me, and AR 5 and AR 6. I'm going to ask people online first, any discussion or objection to removing those 4? Or anyone uncomfortable about that or want to discuss it more?
No objection for me.
Okay. I think. Right, anyone in the room?
Go for it. Thank you.
I went ahead as long as you're talking. I'm on board with AR4A and B, removing, what'd you say about 5 and 6?
Yeah, AR 5 and AR 6, yep.
Just removing those also?
And those were the ones that, they were saying were not really.
Yeah, it's like the duration and cost and everything else. Yeah, I'm on board with that.
Good with that? Any more discussion about that? And yes, Steve?
Just a quick, the discussion's been really helpful. There's a few things that I heard, some terms like educated guesses, decisions, pros, cons, and trade-offs. So while there's a potential decision of removing some options, I would just like, they might be completely obvious, right? And that's very, very okay. At some point, the decision process might become a little more cloudy. We don't have cost yet, and while that's one marker, it's a very big one. And so I think we should, beyond this evening, just have a discussion about things like, construction time frame, swing space. Some of these options, while it's not presented tonight, have pretty big site impacts that we just don't know yet. I know they've given a lot of thought about it, and they wouldn't have suggested anything that just wouldn't be possible, site development-wise and parking-wise, traffic circulation, but we should start to think about when that decision-making process becomes a little less clear, how we're going to get there. And so there's a lot of information between all these. It's, which one, does this versus that, and I think whether they all remain tonight or some get removed, I think we can start to put together a little kind of cheat sheet of, okay, which ones require swing space or relocation or modulars or, right, whatever those are going to be, and have a discussion around that maybe moving forward so we can, when decision-making time becomes imminent, we have a path to get there.
I think a metric we need to keep in there too is the, like everyone said, with the non-educational space, how much can be retained, how much has to be moved, needs to be another thing in our cross-check.
It's huge. Yep. So it's a little hard to kind of look at them right now, stand back and understand which ones achieve that or become really difficult to. And I know we can always bring options back, but to the extent that we can make some of these decisions kind of like, you know, a one-way door that we don't come back from, I think is helpful from production and, you know, just keeping the committee's head clear about, you know, what direction we're heading in.
So maybe before we eliminate these 4, so is there a way to put a spreadsheet together, like you were just saying, pros and cons? You know, like, again, I know it's kind of written on the side here, but a spreadsheet with all the options and say, you know, full move out, modular, whatever, so we can all just look at it in one place. And, I mean, I know it's maybe a lot of work.
It doesn't necessarily have to be around pros, cons, but just factual.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. And then pros and cons, you know, which that would be a pro or a con in someone's mind if we're totally moving out, not moving out, how many modulars, how long it takes to build, like just on one spreadsheet to see that all in one place instead of trying to flip and look at notes, right?
We've started to develop the skeleton for that in anticipation of the cost data, because that's usually one of the markers that's on that said spreadsheet. So you're looking at all of them at a glance, and that's yeah, this was the first night of seeing all of them, and so really some of the pros and cons come from this discussion, which David's been taking notes on, so we're going to be able to have a better informed response from your all response tonight. So, yeah.
Right now,
You've told us.
Site development option of AR 4 or 5 might be the best possible site outcome, but the challenges educational and programmatically are just too big to overcome. It's clear now, but I think having something like that would really help.
Well, we'll take the time out like you suggested, because you've been at it longer than we have, right? Martha?
So are you suggesting that we not make that decision tonight? Is that what you're suggesting?
No, if it's obvious and everybody's in favor, there's...
Well, you're right. So I kind of feel like we were making the decision, but then you were kind of maybe saying we should take a time out on it and see it and think about it a little bit longer. And so I guess I'm going to now put it out to the folks online first. Do you want to take a time out and wait to get more information?
I would prefer to.
In the room?
I think I would like to eliminate 1. Like, I get that, like I said, I heard Chris specifically say, like, this is the same length and duration, but it gets you better school or something along those lines. So, like, I just don't feel like at this point we're carrying a lot of options, and then when you go A, B, C, D, and not like we can't bring anything back if we need, but I feel like narrowing, I think, was it 4? If we eliminated 4, that might help us.
I will, for what it's worth, also say that if a key determiner is there's no way we're going to be willing to pallet moving kids, everybody off-site, that's not going to fundamentally change.
Which one was that one?
That's NC3, which I was going to bring up after we had this discussion.
NC3, but also AR4, AR, whatever those were.
4A?
Yeah.
4A.
And so if that's a fundamental, like, hard stop, we won't go past go on this, then there's no reason to keep it around and keep digging for data, because no matter what site plan or what other data we bring, it's like, to even get there, you got to move everybody off site to start. That you can do that comfortably and say it just has a fundamental flaw at the beginning. It's not viable.
Martha?
Yeah, I mean, if somebody here thinks that's one of the, I was going, after we discuss these 4, I was going to mention NC3, which requires removing everybody from the site for 3 years. I mean, can anyone here imagine what we would do with all those people?
Right.
Because we know.
I don't support any option that requires us to completely vacate the building. Especially when we have options. Like if we had 3 options, it'd be one thing, but we're looking at still 9 or 10 options, and if 2 or 3 of them are everyone leaves for 3 or 4 years, that's an entire high school career in a modular. I can't envision that unless we're desperate.
So I guess the question is, do we want to remove the NC3 tonight and then think about the other ones with a little more information for the next meeting? Melissa, I think we're all kind of in agreement too, but it might be nice to see everything in one place and then we can eliminate them at the next meeting.
I'm personally ready to eliminate the options that we discussed in the meeting.
Oh, both R4A, R4B.
AR4, AR6, AR4B.
So there'd be 5 possible eliminations for tonight.
That's 5. I think all 5 of those can go.
So I'm going to throw that out there again, and we'll think about it. So we have a suggestion from Megan to eliminate NC3, and then the other 4 that we had already talked about, AR4A, AR4B, AR5, and AR6.
So I'll make a motion then.
So moved.
Okay. Do we want?
Melissa just made the motion.
So we have a motion for that. You made the motion, you seconded it.
Megan went first.
Which options, because it was very quick.
Yes.
I'd like to make a motion to remove option AR6, option AR5, option AR4A, AR4B, and option NC3.
Okay. Do you have a second?
B5, 6, NC3.
Is there a second?
Sure, I'll second it if I'm allowed to.
Sure, there's a second. Martha said.
Oh, Martha? Okay.
Yeah, if you can
I'll
second.
second it.
Doug will second, I'll second,
All
whatever.
right. So I am going to take a vote on eliminating those. So I am going to, Mr. Brooks?
Aye.
Megan?
Yes.
And Melissa?
Yes.
Dr. Conti?
Yes.
Lisa Chen?
Yes.
Yes. Chris, where'd he go?
He left.
So he's,
Yes.
He's online.
oh, okay, all right, okay. Chris?
Yes.
Multitasking.
Wow, he's Bob Kuna.
Yes.
We've got Neil.
Yes.
Chuck. Gail? Tom? Tom?
Yes. Yes.
And Martha, we have obviously a yes from you. All right, so we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and with
You didn't call on me.
Oh, Mimi, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm gonna abstain. If it was AR3, it would have been a yes, but, so I'll abstain on this one.
And Joe Adebato joined the meeting.
So we have 12.
Chair. Catherine.
What?
Am I a voting member?
Joe is on here as well.
Oh, Joe, you jumped on. You weren't
I
there
did.
the
I
first
came on a
time
little
around.
late. I'm sorry about that.
Are you a yes?
I wasn't sure.
Or abstain or no?
I didn't know I was a voting member.
Well, we all are for this stuff other than the finance.
I'll go with yes.
Okay. So we have 13 yeses with the chair voting yes, 0 noes, and 1 abstention. Okay. So we will eliminate those, hopefully making it easier for you all.
And we still have 10 options.
Plenty to choose. Okay, so I'm going to have us go, Melissa, we didn't vote on the invoices because usually we have the school committee do that, and since you're vice chair of the school committee, I would like to have you run the invoice votes for the school committee members that are present. Chris is often having a good time.
Okay.
So can we go back to the invoices?
Here on the screen.
I can pull them up bigger if you guys would like,
Yeah,
but
could you
effectively, yes. Well, he's doing it. Sorry. You doing it? You do it. You're more skilled than I am. We've always known that. So the Door and Whittier invoice is invoice number 11 for September in the amount of $18,000. TAP A has an invoice numbers 240905 in the amount of $50,862.
So, I can't see them, so.
Make a motion.
Is there a motion to approve the Door and Whittier invoice number,
Yep, motion to approve.
11.
Scroll that down.
for $18,000?
Yep, motion to approve Door and Whittier invoice number 11 for $18,000. And also a motion to approve TAP A invoice 240905 in the amount of $50,862.
Second.
All right. Any discussion on the first invoice? Catherine?
Aye.
Megan?
Yes.
Jeremy?
Aye.
I vote aye, 4-0.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, Melissa.
And the second, I think there's two motions. Is there a second on the second motion?
Second.
Catherine?
Aye.
Megan?
Yes.
Jeremy?
Aye.
I vote aye, 4-0.
Thank you.
Yeah?
All right, so now we have budget update.
Yeah, so this slide here, and, I apologize for the size of it. I don't really know what to do about it. But this is something that it's also in our monthly reports, and this is just a visual snapshot of the approved funds that we have for the town of $1.5 million. It includes our contract, it includes TAP A's contracted amounts, and there is an additional $100,000 that the school committee has as part of that allocation that is sort of not allocated to anything just yet. So what it is just a visual representation. And so if I zoom in here, challenged, so I can't even do that. Why won't it let me do that? I don't know.
Move slide this to Zoom.
Oh, really? Yeah. Right, so if you see on the screen here, of course I don't have our... Anyway, the 450 is the Door and Whittier contract amount. The 750.
This part.
Slide that, but then I lose that. So it doesn't. It's,
All right.
What I would hope is that when you see the printed version, you will see that it includes all of our invoiced amounts to date. Then it shows amounts remaining. It's in the monthly report. I will do better to make it bigger because I'm challenged. What I can tell you is that it's accurate. And to the extent there's questions about the budget, anytime, just please reach out to me.
And it will be posted online, too, for those who want to look at it themselves. Like you said, it'll get posted tomorrow so that you can look at it yourself. Jeremy?
Just the only question I had is, I get what we're committed and what's invoiced. Are we on target for our burn rate for the schedule we have remaining?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep, absolutely. And that's how we've, we're in close, we're all good. So that was just the budget update. I'm just going to quickly move down the agenda, if that's all right, Catherine. Sure. So I put in these slides, and we've mentioned it before. We did go to the beer garden, and I know that Steve and the Fox Hill team was there for several of the ones before that, leading up to town meeting, which was a great result for Fox Hill. We got a lot of really good feedback, and people just genuinely interested in the project. And I felt an acknowledgement from the people that we spoke to that something needs to be done at the high school. And that there's a universal acknowledgement of that, and that was really positive to hear. So we were excited about that. And then I think coming out of, there was an information session with town meeting members leading up to town meeting where there was this, is there a high school project? Well, prove it. And I think Catherine did a very effective job of proving just that, utilizing the video that we had put together, and we put a statement together. And coming out of that, you know, we had said, let Fox Hill have, you know, the center stage, and then we'll follow up with the high school. And so what we would like to do, and I've written Tuesday, November 19th here, but in the agenda, I think it says TBD, because I believe you likely have a Fox Hill Building Committee meeting that night.
Yeah, we had proposed the third Tuesday of the month, which I believe that would be, so.
Right. So I would like to have it during that week, and Chris and I will work on that together. We'll also discuss that with the Communications and Outreach Working Group in terms of materials that we're going to show and making sure people are comfortable with what we want to do. I just need a night. And so I do think it's important to do before Thanksgiving, because then the silly season starts, and we're not going to, I want people to come, and it's going to be easier to get them to come before Thanksgiving than between then and the end of the year.
Whatever holidays we're celebrating.
Right.
Yeah.
So is Wednesday better?
You know what, I think we probably need to look at the town calendar.
Okay.
And pick a night based on that, and school committee, whatever, and then we'll pick a date.
Right. And obviously, any and all school committee and building committee members can be there. I think it allows, you know, our teams to sort of educate the public on what it is we're all doing, but I certainly don't think that the entire building committee needs to be at the information center session if they can't make it. Right? I would love for everyone to be there. I'm just cognizant that it's another evening.
Yes, I agree.
So
Yep.
maybe I will come back to you. We could send out a poll and just say, is there, and we just go with.
The one that most people can attend.
It's going to be Monday, Wednesday, or Thursday.
Right, yep.
I can assure you of that.
After Thanksgiving is much as you can get it.
So we'll do that. We'll send out a poll, and we'll figure out what's best, and I can speak to you, and we'll figure it out. I'll check the town calendar, make sure we're not running afoul of something. But I think that, you know, we've had them on Fox Hill, and, you know, this is going to be the first of many opportunities for people to understand what we're doing. So,
Okay.
And then,
I think we're back to.
yeah, we're back to you now.
Public comment.
Or other topics not reasonably
Yes,
anticipated.
Exactly. Any other public comment online? Okay, there's no one here. So next meetings, November 14th at 6:30. The community one will adjust as we can. December 12th at 6:30. And then, again, it says SBC meetings in 2025, a bit the second month, so we'll get that scheduled out when we can.
And that's assuming that schedule still works for folks, and that's what we want to keep doing. If that's the case, then they'll just turn up on the next slide, and that's the way we'll continue.
Yeah, I'd like to keep it like it is.
All good.
We can, yep. All right. Anyone want to make a motion? Second. All right.
Thank you very much.
We're adjourned.
Thank you.
Copy of these
Thank you all.